12:48. All right. Detective, part of the court's order is you agree to return within 72 hours of being notified. Do you understand the order?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And you'll give the court plenty of notice.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next witness.
Thank you. People call me Dennis Baylor.
Please do. On the way, Mr. Jordan.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. That's a camera that's about to go out of the courtroom. There are stairs. Well, do you remember Steve Trott? Look where it got him.
Yeah.
I'd bet he could.
testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat and with me stand. Please state and spell your first and last names for the record.
My first name is Frank. My last name is Spangler. That's S-P-A-N-G-L-E-R.
Ms. Clark.
Sir, can you please tell us what you do for a living?
I'm the commanding officer of West Los Angeles Detective Division. I'm a lieutenant of police for the Los Angeles Police Department.
And were you so employed on the date of June the 13th, 1994?
Yes, I was.
And did you respond to the scene at 875 South Bundy on that date, sir?
Yes, I did.
At some point between 2:30 and 3 a.m., do you recall going to an area of the crime scene where you were able to look through a fence and at the body of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, could you please cut the feed? This is People's Exhibit number 46. Excuse me.
I'm going to ask you to look at your monitor, sir. Do you recognize the location shown in this photograph, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the location?
The location is 875 South Bundy.
Do you see the area that I indicated earlier, a walkway along the north side of the fence of 875 South Bundy where you walked?
Yes, I do.
Can you please direct? I'm going to ask you to watch the arrow, direct the arrow to the location where you walked
How do I
along
do
the
that?
north side. You're going to see it in a minute.
Oh, okay. Did you want me to just
Tell the arrow where to
okay. Move it to the west. No, that's north. No, that's
no.
south. Vertically on the screen.
There we go.
There you go. That would be the general area up in there in the shadow of where that tree is.
All right, thank you.
There's a concrete walkway up in there.
Can you please mark that? And the initials. Ask that this be marked Peoples. 46. We have so many letters after the numbers, I have to catch up. 46B.
All right, 46B. Mrs. Robertson, 46B.
Your Honor, this is People's Exhibit number 43E, People Made for Mankind.
Showing you this photograph, sir, please look at your monitor. Can you tell us if you recognize the location you've described to us in this photograph?
Yes, I do.
The fence that is shown behind the body of Ron Goldman. Can you tell us whether or not that is the fence that you walked up and looked through, behind which there's that concrete walkway you indicated?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know where you stood in relationship to the body of Ron Goldman?
I would have been on the north side of the fence, looking through the fence, and about parallel with where his pants line would be on his back.
And when you made this observation, sir, who were you with?
Initially, Detective Phillips.
Ron Phillips?
Yes, ma'am.
Did something draw your attention in particular as you looked at the body of Ron Goldman from the other side of the fence, the north side of that fence?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that?
I could see an injury on his lower back, appeared to be on the left side, the way he was laying.
I'm going to ask you again to try and direct the arrow to the fence that we're talking about, behind which you stood.
Take it up to the fence itself. You see that dark band behind the fence? Right in there. Now, I stood further down to where it looks like there might be a tree trunk down in that area, right in there.
All right, if we could mark that. Okay, and you would have been on the other side of that fence, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And that- Equals 43E sub 1. Maybe we just make it 43.
So marked. I'm sorry, never mind.
We can't make it 43F because 43F is another photograph, so.
Right. E sub 1.
E sub 1.
But they'll be provided to the jury in order.
Yes.
Mark.
After you made that observation, sir, from that location with Detective Phillips, what did you do next?
Walked back out into the street on Bundy, walked over to what would be the east curb down near Dorothy, and had a conversation with Detective Phillips.
Now, the wound that you saw on the body of Ron Goldman, sir, did you form some opinion as to the nature of that wound?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that?
It looked like it might have been a gunshot wound to me.
Now, you were talking only about the wound on the back, is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
People's Exhibit number 51.
All right, so do you recognize the intersection shown on this photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is it?
Dorothy and Bundy.
Okay. Can you tell us which street is Bundy?
You see the sign with the curving, the street sign with the curve on it?
Yes.
The street would be Bundy, and Dorothy would be the street that the blue car is sort of turned around on there.
Okay, so you indicated that you walked back out from that North Gate area with Detective Phillips, and you went to the east side of Bundy. Would that be the side of Bundy indicated by that yellow sign with the curving arrow?
Yes, ma'am.
You spoke to Detective Phillips for a while?
Yes, I did.
At some point, did you see Detective Furman?
Yes, I did.
And did he come over to you?
Yes.
Did you have a conversation with him?
Yes, I did.
And after you had that conversation what did you share with him? What information?
I had discussed the injury that I had seen to the male victim's body, and indicated that, in my opinion, it could possibly be a gunshot wound.
Just the one that you saw on the back?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And then I asked him to accompany me over to look at it.
So what happened next?
He accompanied me over. We walked back into the pathway the exact same way that I had been there earlier, and shined a light on the victim, and Detective Furman looked at the injury.
Did you walk all the way back to the same position you'd been in earlier, behind the north gate, the north fence, with Detective Furman?
Detective Furman was in front of me, so I was a few feet further east than I would have been the first time, but we were there together. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you see him walk to the same location you had gone to?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he do in that location, sir?
He shined his light onto the male victim's back, and illuminating the area of the injury that I observed, looked at it for a few moments, walked back with me back out into the street at Bundy, and expressed his opinion that that did not look like a gunshot wound to him, that it looked like possibly a cut.
He said possibly a cut.
Yes.
Okay. Now, were you able to see his hands as he walked to the North Gate area where you had previously been with Detective Phillips and walked back out?
Yes, I could.
What was in his hands, sir?
A flashlight.
Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Did he leave your sight at any point when he went to the North Gate area, North Fence area, examined Ron Goldman, and came back to you?
No, ma'am.
And at that point, when you both came back out, where did you stand?
We walked back over to the east curb of Bundy, just north of Dorothy.
At that point, sir, do you recall what kind of flashlight Detective Furman had with him that night?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind was it?
A black pen light.
May I see?
Mrs. Robertson?
Showing you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 1055. Do you recognize what I'm showing you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
It's a mag light.
And how does that compare in similarity to the flashlight that was carried by Detective Furman on the night or early morning hours of June 13th, 1994?
Looks to be the same to me.
After that point, sir, did Detective Furman re-enter the crime scene?
No, ma'am.
How do you know that?
I stood on the east side of Bundy, just north of Dorothy, until the arrival of robbery homicide, and no one went back into that crime scene.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Mr. Bailey?
Lieutenant Spangler, what time did you arrive there that night?
I believe I arrived approximately 2:30 in the morning, sir.
So you were there rather shortly after Detectives Furman and Phillips arrived at 2:10.
That's my understanding, yes.
And did you learn soon after your arrival about their having arrived at 2:10?
I don't believe I made that inquiry at the time, but that is my understanding, yes, sir.
What was the first thing you remember after arriving at the scene?
Talking to Detective Phillips.
Okay, where was Detective Furman?
Detective Furman was standing to the rear of 875 South Bundy in the alleyway.
Okay, and where were you?
I had walked around to the alleyway and met Detective Phillips and talked to him, sir.
Can you tell us where you went after your arrival, what you looked at?
Yes, sir.
Or
Detective Phillips and Sergeant Rossi spoke to me briefly, and then Detective Phillips escorted me into the condominium via the rear garage.
And did you view the crime scene from the steps, front steps?
I stayed inside the condominium. I did not go outside onto any steps, sir.
Okay, and did you ever enter the crime scene from Bundy?
Yes, I did, sir.
When was that?
Detective Phillips, after taking me through the interior of the condominium and showing me some things from the doorway, took me back via Dorothy to the front of the location, and he illuminated a pathway through some plants that were just south of the sidewalk where the female victim was lying, and we approached it from that position, sir.
Okay. And can you recall what you did after that?
Yes, sir. We walked back out into the street of Bundy and walked north to the pathway that I described and walked in and looked at the body of the male victim from that perspective, sir.
And that was at what time?
I arrived at 2:30, and by 2:50, we had made all those observations. So over a period of 20 minutes, we were in the condominium, out at the front, and back over on the east curb of Bundy.
And by 2:50, you had been up to the body, noticed what you thought was a gunshot wound, and gone back and done the same with Furman, correct?
No, sir. Furman, the time that I went up with Furman was a few minutes later, sir.
How many?
I would estimate just after 3 in the morning, maybe 3:05 max.
As I understood it, you came back with Phillips to
Yes.
the corner,
Yes, sir.
spoke to Furman, and then took him up to look at the wound.
I'm sorry.
What time did you and Detective Phillips go look at the wound?
That would have been about 2:45.
Okay. And how much time elapsed between the viewing with Phillips and the viewing with Furman?
10, 15 minutes.
And where was that? I understood from your
I
direct
didn't hear the
testimony.
question, sir.
I understood from your direct testimony that you walked down, told Furman what you'd seen, and took him back without any break. Did
No,
something
sir.
happen in between?
No, sir. Furman walked over to me. Furman walked from around back behind the condominium out to my location on Bundy, and then we had our conversation. I had discussed my observations with him, and then I walked over with him. There was a period of time when I was standing out on Bundy by myself because Detective Phillips had gone to get Detective Roberts and Detective Furman.
Okay. What did Detective Furman say to you when he first encountered you on that occasion?
That's not the sequence that occurred. I was speaking, and I asked him. He didn't ask me.
Did he say anything to you other than
Sure.
to respond?
Oh, yes, he said, sure. When I asked him to walk over with me, he said, sure.
No. What I'm asking, Lieutenant Spangler, is whether or not Detective Furman said anything unrelated to the alleged wound in the body to you about the case at that time.
No, sir, he did not.
Did not, made no comments.
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know at what point Detective Furman was writing his notes? In other words, was it before or after, if you know, you took him up to look at the wound?
I do not recall seeing him writing any notes, sir.
Well, you weren't, he has testified that he wrote notes in the house. Were you aware of that?
He was not in the house with me, sir.
Okay. Was he in the house after you were there at any time?
I never saw him in the house.
When he walked up to you and Phillips following your observation of Mr. Goldman's body, where was he coming from?
I later learned from Detective Phillips that he had been inside the house, sir.
Okay.
And I believe that's where Detective Phillips found him.
All right. Well, now his notes say possible gunshot wound, GSW. Did anyone other than yourself ever suggest that the laceration on Goldman's body was a gunshot wound, if you know?
I do not know of anyone else that made that observation, sir.
Okay. And you say that Detective Furman, upon viewing the wound, thought that it looked more like a cut,
Yes, sir.
such as would be inflicted by a sharp instrument.
Yes, sir, that's fair.
All right. Now, the notes that he wrote say gunshot wound, but do not mention cut. Do you know why that is?
No, sir, I've never seen the notes.
Okay. How long after that was it that Detectives Phillips and Furman were notified that the case would not be theirs, if you know?
How long after what?
After his encounter with Furman in the body.
Okay, your question is, how long after Furman and I viewed the body?
Yes.
The decision that Robert Homicide was going to handle?
Yes.
Okay, decision was made before he and I viewed the body together. I'd made the decision when Detective Phillips and I were standing out on Bundy after he and I had viewed the bodies, and that would have been roughly 10 minutes to 3, sir.
And what, if anything, did Phillips do?
Phillips left me, walked around to the rear where Detective Roberts and Detective Furman had been, and brought them back to the front where I was standing.
Did he go in the house?
He was out of my sight, sir. I don't know. I later learned that Detectives Roberts and Furman apparently were inside the condominium, so I can surmise that he did, but I don't have personal knowledge of that.
And he brought Furman back with him? Is that the way it happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Had you learned at that point that a single glove had been located that might be connected with the murders?
I saw it, sir.
Okay. Did you direct anyone to see if there was another glove around, since they normally come in pairs?
When I was looking at the crime scene, I illuminated the area with a flashlight, and there was never any other glove there. There was only that one that I could see by both an oblique illumination of the crime scene and a horizontal illumination. I only ever saw the one, sir.
Did you look around the body?
Yes, I did.
Where?
From two perspectives. Actually three, excuse me. From the doorway inside the condominium, you could look down and have a limited view. From the south side of the bodies when we walked through the planted area, and then from the north side of the bodies when we walked up on the outside of the fence. I looked at it three different angles.
All right. Two of the angles, you were within the enclosure that is now called the crime scene. Is that correct? If you consider the fence and the gate to be an enclosure.
I never entered inside the gate, if that's a question you're asking, sir.
Okay. Well, would you review them again, if you will, because that's not clear to me without
Okay, sir.
putting a picture up
Yes,
as to
sir.
where you were standing. Time
Yes, sir.
one?
Time one. Time one was standing in the doorway of the condominium inside
Oh, okay.
the house.
You couldn't see any glove from there, could you?
Don't recall seeing a glove from there, sir.
Okay.
Time two was from just south of the walkway where the female victim was lying. Time three was from the north side outside the fence at the residence that's immediately north of 875 South Bundy.
Did you look anywhere else on any other occasion?
Yes, sir.
Where?
I looked on sidewalks, I looked in the street, I looked on the lawn, and as I walked, I looked to make sure you don't step on anything or disturb anything,
Sure.
that sort of thing. Yes, sir.
All right. Now back to my original question. Did you ever ask if another glove had been seen or directed anyone to look for one?
I don't recall making that specific request, sir.
You never wrote a report of any of these matters, did you, Lieutenant?
No, sir, I have never written a report on any of these matters.
So you are now, I take it, you never testified about this matter either, have you before?
No, sir, I've never testified in this matter.
So you are relying totally on your memory at the moment, or your memory and the reports of others?
Independent recollection and recall, sir.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you returned from the third viewing of the crime scene with Detective Furman.
No, sir. I returned from the third viewing of the crime scene with Detective Phillips to South Bundy.
Fourth, then.
When Detective Furman and I went up there, that would have been a fourth time. That's correct, sir.
A fourth time.
Yes, but,
Okay.
yes, sir.
You returned at about 3 o'clock?
About 3:05, I would think.
Tell the jury, if you can, everything you did for the next 2 hours.
For the next 2 hours, after viewing the crime scene with Detective Furman,
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
Or will, do you want to look at, why don't you review item 4? Mr. Bailey? Lieutenant, you can answer the question.
I stood on the east side of Bundy, just north of Dorothy, and the only time that I left that position was when I walked over to look at the dog.
Sorry, I didn't catch the last.
The only time I left my position, what we were doing is we were waiting for robbery homicide to arrive, and I walked over and looked at the dog. That was about it.
Looked at the dog?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the Akita?
I don't know the brand, but there are the breed, excuse me, but but it was a pretty good sized dog, yes, sir.
Did the dog have a leash on it when you saw it?
I seem to recall it was a rope.
A rope
Yeah, I think it looked more like a rope to me than a leash, yes, sir.
around his neck, dragging?
No, I believe he was tied to something, a street pole or a
Oh, okay.
tree or something like
The
that.
dog was tethered the only time you saw him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. About what time was that?
About 3:15.
Okay. Now, other than that one excursion to see the dog, did you remain at the position you showed us in the prior photograph, the intersection of Bundy and Dorothy, from 3 until the detectives left at 5?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you still there after they left?
Yes, sir.
You recall them leaving?
Yes, sir.
When you saw Detective Furman that night, was he wearing a coat at any time?
Yes, sir.
And when was that?
When I first arrived,
And did you see him later without a coat?
yes, I did.
When was that?
Just shortly after 3 o'clock, he had it off by the time he and I walked up to the front, to the north side of the bodies.
Okay. When you were with Detective Furman, you saw him shine the light, a replica of which is before you,
Yes, sir.
on the body of Ron Golden.
Yes, I did.
Did you see him poke around or shine it anywhere else or make any other investigation in your presence?
No, sir.
Okay. So that as I understand it, he walked up, shined the light on the body where you directed him to look, and came out.
Yes, sir.
He has said 5 seconds. Would that sound right to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is when he said to you, I don't think it's a gunshot wound. I think it's a cut.
Objection. Objection.
What's the ground?
State's testimony.
Overruled.
I'm sorry. Did I misquote you? I understood that Detective Furman had disagreed with your analysis and substituted his own.
Well,
How did he put it?
Well, he's kind of sort of politely, but he pointed out to me that that was one of the reasons I was a lieutenant and they were the homicide investigators, because it didn't look like a gunshot wound to him.
Was he suggesting he'd been benched?
Well, he's just suggesting that he had a different opinion, I think.
All right. But Detective Furman was never bashful about expressing his opinions, was he?
No, sir.
Yeah. Now, can you tell us from 3 to 5 a.m. where Detective Furman was?
Until, I believe it was Detective Lang or Van Natter, and I don't recall which one it was, arrived, he was with me.
How long was that?
That was from the time that Detective Phillips brought them back around from the back of the building until, gosh, almost 4 in the morning, sir.
Okay.
And from that point, Detective Phillips and Detective Furman were talking to one or both of the homicide investigators, and I believe Lieutenant Rogers had arrived, and they were talking to Lieutenant Rogers, and we're walking around the vicinity with them, showing them various things that they had seen earlier.
Was there any talk during that period about possible suspects, Lieutenant?
Yes.
Was Mr. Simpson's name mentioned?
No.
Okay. Was there a suggestion of some other suspect?
Excuse me, sir, let me clarify if I may.
Yes.
When you say was his name mentioned,
As a
not
suspect.
as a suspect, that's what okay, that was my answer then.
It was pretty well understood that the female decedent was Nicole Brown Simpson, his former wife, was it not?
There was some doubt when I arrived, and part of the process of my walking through and seeing and discussing with Detective Phillips and Sergeant Rossi was to make that determination because it was going to be my decision whether or not we handle it or Detective Robbery Homicide Division handle it. And I wanted to satisfy myself, but there was a period of time, approximately 3:45, 3:50 in the morning, I became convinced that it was almost certainly her.
Do you mean 2:45 or 2:50?
I mean that I was becoming more convinced. The more I saw, the more convinced I became.
You just said 3:45 to
I'm
3:50.
sorry, I misspoke. I meant 2, sir. I'm sorry.
I thought, okay.
Yes, sir.
So there wasn't any question bandied about after that point about the identity of the female victim, was there?
I don't recall any discussion.
You would hardly permit detectives to go notify Mr. O.J. Simpson that his wife had been murdered unless you were sure that that was true. Isn't that so?
That's a fair assessment, yes, sir.
Had you received any special instructions as to how Mr. Simpson should be notified in this case?
Yes, sir.
And from whom?
From Detective Phillips.
And he told you that someone else had made a request of him. Do you know who that was?
Yes, sir. It was Commander Bushy.
Was it your decision to bring in robbery homicide alone, or had you been instructed to do that if it turned out that the victim was Mrs. Simpson?
I'll have to explain that to you, but it was my decision. The chief made a recommendation, but I'm the commanding officer on the scene, and it's my responsibility to make the decision, and it was my decision.
His recommendation, however, preceded your decision, did it not?
Yes, it did, sir.
And was identical with your decision, was it not?
I'm very grateful to him for having suggested that. Yes, sir.
Yes. In retrospect.
Yes, sir.
Did you, when you walked through the house, notice a list of phone numbers, including Mr. Simpson's?
No, sir.
Did you notice a telephone with a dialer on it that said Daddy?
No, sir.
Did you know that 2 children had been taken out of the house?
I was informed. Yes, sir.
And did you know that Mr. Simpson and Mrs. Simpson had 2 children? Had you known that?
No, I did not know that.
Was there any talk in your presence by any of the detectives about any difficulties Mr. Simpson might have had in 1985 or 1989?
Not in my presence, sir.
Did Detective Furman ever discuss that subject with you?
He never did, sir.
When you talked to Detective Furman and then walked with him up to the north side, as we call it, of the enclosed area that has been described as the crime scene, did he tell you that he had been there before?
No, sir.
Did he mention anything at all?
No, sir.
Do you recall, Lieutenant, that there is an area of heavy foliage immediately outside the crime scene?
Yes, sir.
Did you personally carry a flashlight with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you go through that area?
What do you mean by go through it? Did I walk through it?
Foliage.
Did I walk through it?
Or search through it?
Yes, shine the light and look through, yes, sir.
When did you do that?
When I had walked up with Detective Phillips.
All right. Tell me exactly where it was that you shined your light.
Both to the south of the sidewalk and to the north of the sidewalk, from the curb going west all the way up to the fence, and then when we walked around inside the area. I tried to shine it all over the area as best I could.
Did you leave the sidewalk as you walked by the east boundary of the fence, or simply look from the sidewalk with your flashlight?
I stayed on the sidewalk.
Okay.
The pathway that runs from the east to the west is what I'm referring to as a sidewalk now, not the public sidewalk. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about both.
Okay. And in fact, I did look at both with a flashlight, yes, sir.
Okay. But you stayed on the concrete. I think that's the easiest way to frame it.
Yes, sir. I did not
You walked
step
north
off
on
the...
concrete and west on concrete.
Both of you, let him finish asking the question before you start answering, Lieutenant.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bailey, please let him finish his answer before you start asking
I
the third
apologize,
question.
Your Honor. I'm afraid the witness may share a common lineage as a Marine. You served in
U.S.
the
Army,
military?
sir.
What's that?
Command Sergeant Major, U.S. Army, sir.
U.S. Army?
Yes.
Oh, well. Pardon me. Mr. Darden apparently doesn't know his uniforms. He told me you were a Marine. When was the first time, Lieutenant Spangler, that you recited for anyone's benefit your 2 trips up to look at Goldman's wound? Do you remember the first time you talked about that?
Yesterday.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark?
Lieutenant Spangler, is it common for police officers to carry flashlights at crime scenes?
Especially at night, yes, ma'am.
And what is the importance of having a flashlight at a crime scene?
To aid your vision, to allow you to identify and see potential items of evidence.
And would a flashlight also illuminate where you're walking?
Yes, it would.
And is it important to see where you're walking in a crime scene that contains potential evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that?
So you don't disturb the evidence or just possibly destroy it.
And so is it common practice, in fact, always done in a nighttime crime scene, that police officers use flashlights to illuminate where they walk?
It's my practice.
Now, as I understand it, sir, before, according to your testimony on cross-examination, by the time Detective Furman came out to you, before you went with him to that north fence, he had already written notes. That was already done?
It's my understanding, but I did not personally see that.
Sustained.
I'm- This is,
It's already, the question's there, the answer's there, the objection is that the preceding questions have been leading. Proceed.
you testified on cross-examination, sir, as I understand it, that Detective Phillips brought Detective Furman out, to the best of your knowledge. Okay. Tell us what was your knowledge about where Detective Furman had been before you saw him and spoke to him on the east side of Bundy.
Well, I had seen him and Detective Roberts at the rear of the location in the alleyway. And when Detective Phillips left me, he walked around that direction and he returned with them. My understanding was that they were inside the condominium, but I did not personally see that.
Okay. And then, what was your understanding about what Detective Furman was doing inside the condominium before he came out with Detective Phillips to see you on the east side of Bundy?
Beginning their investigation.
Okay. Was it your understanding that he was writing notes inside the condominium at that time?
Yes.
And it was after that point that you had your conversation on the east side of Bundy, and what did you do after that?
After Detective Phillips, Detective Furman, and Detective Roberts returned to my location,
Yes.
I made my observation, or discussed my observation of the injury, and I asked Detective Furman to accompany me over to look at it for his opinion.
Now, the observation that you made, the conversation you had about that, was that with respect to the one wound on the back, or with respect to all of the wounds on the body?
That one wound, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have a conversation with Detective Furman about any of the other possible wounds on the body?
No, I did not.
And when you discussed with him that one wound that you saw on the back, what did he tell you about his belief concerning the cause of that one wound?
He told me that he did not think it was a gunshot wound, that he thought it was a cut.
Okay. What was the language? Was he definite, or was it a possible cut?
He was kind of, I want to call it laughing at me, but he was of the opinion that I didn't know what I was talking about, I think. He seemed to be fairly certain in his mind that it was a cut.
What, was this an insulting conversation, sir? or-
Well, I certainly hope not, ma'am.
Oh, okay. How did you take it?
I was not insulted.
Were you laughing?
I deferred to his expertise, though.
Were you laughing at the time?
Yes, I did.
You indicated, sir, that you were glad that you had made the decision to refer the case to robbery homicide,
Yes, ma'am.
and you were grateful for the suggestion from Lieutenant Frankel?
Chief.
Chief Frankel.
Yes.
Forgive me.
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And why is that, sir?
Because I have, counting Detective Phillips, a four-man homicide unit, and I don't have the resources to adequately investigate a crime that would of this magnitude. I mean, I have something like 38 detectives in my entire division. We'd had to shut down everything and handle nothing but this case. Couldn't do it.
And then, just so it's clear, sir, based on your knowledge of the observations made at the crime scene, 875 South Bundy, how many gloves were there?
There was only ever one glove there that I saw.
Has it ever been brought to your attention that anyone, whether it was the first officer or any other officer after him at the scene, saw anything other than one glove.
One glove.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bailey? All right. Lieutenant, you're excused from further testimony at this time. However, subject to recall, please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else except for the attorneys or their investigators. Do you understand the order, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you very much, Lieutenant. You're excused.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief recess at this time to change court reporters. Please remember my admonition to you.